on YouTube. You don't have to take pictures. Oh, you just take your picture. You just take your picture. Right, good. All right, you have to take a picture.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Monday, December 17th, 2018 City Council meeting to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Condon.
Here.
Alderman Devine.
Here.
Alderman McHenry.
Here.
Alderman Curry.
Here.
Alderman Schaefer.
Here.
Alderman Glab.
Here.
Alderman Santee.
Here.
Mayor Jeff.
Here. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is a proclamation on behalf of the city of McHenry and the mayor, Patrick Wirtz. I don't see him here this evening, so I'll go ahead and read this proclamation at this time. Whereas the city of McHenry recognizes the contributions of its noteworthy citizens who have made valuable contributions to the community, and whereas Patrick Wirtz was appointed to the City of McHenry Landmark Commission in 2006 by then Mayor Susan E. Lau, and became the chairperson on May 1st, 2018, serving in this capacity through August 9th, 2018, with a total of 12 years of service to the Landmark Commission of the City of McHenry. Whereas while serving on the City of McHenry Landmark Commission, Patrick Wirtz worked on numerous projects related to historical nature, including but not limited to a day at Peterson Farm, art in the park, review of demolition requests, review of facade grant requests, restoration of the wooded silos, and Peterson home at the historic Peterson Farm, and many others. Whereas the City Council wishes to recognize the many contributions of Patrick Wirtz and celebrate his dedication to the preservation and restoration of the historic Peterson Farm, as well his love of history and the City of McHenry, his growth, vision, and vast knowledge of the city, its history and culture, and his photographic ability. And now, therefore, I, Wayne S. Jett, Mayor of the City of McHenry, do hereby proclaim Monday, December 17, 2018, as Patrick Wirtz Day in the City of McHenry, and ask that all citizens pay tribute to this outstanding individual on behalf of the citizens of the City of McHenry. Every week, I look forward to all of his pictures that he sends nonstop. So. Thank you, Patrick, for all you've done in the City of McHenry. The next item on the agenda is the public comment portion. These would be items that are not on the action items, but more items that are on the consent agenda. Is there anyone in the public that would like to make a public comment at this time? Once again, items that are not on the agenda. I see none. I'm looking for the consent agenda, items 6A through E. Is there any council members wanting to pull any of those items for separate consideration? See none. I'm looking for a motion to approve items 6A through 6E in the consent agenda. Alderman Curry?
So moved.
Second? Alderman Schaefer?
Second.
Discussion on these items? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Curry.
Yes.
Alderman Schaefer.
Yes.
Alderman Glab.
Yes.
Alderman Santee.
Yes.
Alderwoman Condon.
Yes.
Alderman Devine.
Yes.
Alderman McHenry.
Yes.
Thank you, Council. The first action item on this evening is discussion to full execution of an amendment to the Meyer Southside Annexation Agreement motion to approve an ordinance granting an extension of the existing conditional use permit for the continued operation of the Meyer Lafarge commercial sand and gravel business on the south side of Illinois Route 120. I'm going to have Attorney McCardle present this item.
Okay, I'm sorry I'm here tonight, over here.
We're okay with that.
December is kind of crazy, I have to go to another place. And so Kelly's gonna sit in for me even though it's her daughter's 21st birthday, sorry about that. So I think we're finally here. With everybody's help on the committee, with Randy and Tom and everybody, I think we've got couple of agreements to present. I won't go through it all with you, but just to make a couple of representations. Dry bank mining, this is on the south side. Dry bank mining, this is the conditional use too. We're gonna vote on that first, and then we're gonna go to the annexation agreement. All dry bank mining has to be done by the end of the year in 2024. At that time, in the end of 2024, the primary crusher that seems to be the noise producer, primarily from their operation, is gonna be removed from the site. They move then into wet mining for 2 years, finish all that with not making that type of noise. And then after that, reclamation is ongoing and should be completed 2 years later in 2028. So we have a long schedule about that. That schedule is depicted on the plans we gave you. There's a operations plan, which is the second page of this with the red and blue. That operation plan depicts the rotation of the sequence of mining in red. And the last cell we're mining is the cell that lies to the west of Glacier Ridge, intentionally to leave a 50-foot face in front of the west line of Glacier Ridge to help reduce the sound until that last effort is made to remove that cell. So hopefully, you know, that rotation makes sense. And then the blue rotation is for the wet mining below water, or below ground, rather, under the water.
Hey, David, let's make a comment on that, on the sequence. And there's a Burning Tree people here as well. The last cell, which is cell E, is an L-shaped cell. So not only is there an extended buffer between Glacier Ridge to the east, but it will also serve as a buffer for those last couple of years, really, to the south.
To the south, right. So we're doing everything we can to get the crusher out of there, the primary crusher, as quickly as possible, and to leave the natural buffer there, which is a significant, 50 or 40-foot face, there as long as possible until they need to get into it. So that's the sequencing. Fees on page 2 of the ordinance of the conditional use. There's your fees. The $1.6 million paid over time. It starts February 28th. Is that the date?
Yeah.
We extended it. February 28th for the first payment, and then you can see the sequence of payments there. We have penalties on the next page. I won't read them. There's significant penalties if the payment's not made on time. Hours of mining, we regulated those 7 to 7 during weekdays, 7 to 3 p.m. on Saturdays. And we have loading and maintenance hours specified from 5 to 8. That seemed to work. Reclamation plans and security. The last drawing we have is the reclamation plan. Again, and you'll see the slopes. Scott, you can go through those if you want. The slopes to the east, to the west of Glacier Ridge, and to the north of Burning Tree are more significant than the state requires. And Meyer's agreed to that, 5 to 1 on the south and 4 to 1 on the west of Glacier Ridge. And all the state requires apparently is 3 to 1, so it's a much softer slope. We thought that was a good thing. Now that's somewhat dependent on material that's available, but we'll deal with that as the future goes on. Right now they've committed to 5 to 1 and 4 to 1. So that was successful negotiation, we thought. Security, we've got the security of the bonds, both with the state of Illinois and again with the city of McHenry. Those have been accounted for. And then we regulated noise, dust, and groundwater, which is different than what we've done in the past. We have noise regulations that have been provided to us with specifications through a consultant. Those have been incorporated. We have dust regulations, ditto, same thing, and groundwater through HR Green. And we'll be monitoring that through 2 monitoring wells on the northwest, and 2 monitoring wells on the southeast of the property to watch the groundwater going through. We have annual reporting on the next page to the city council. That'll be done every year. And then we have significant penalties section in addition to the damages for non-payment that are specified in the agreement. with regard to parcel A, that's your last drawing. We've also, this was really outside the range of the conditional use and only applies to the amendment to the annexation agreement. But on the last drawing, we're showing some repair reclamation to areas 2 and 1 that are depicted on this drawing, and we have time frames in which that'll be done. So we think we've covered all the sites, and the parcel A was, you know, it was a good deal for the city because it really wasn't an issue, and Meyer agreed to make it an issue as far as the regulation of it. So I'll discuss the procedure a little more if Scott wants to finish off from where I was.
Well, I think you probably covered most of it, so I'll be repeating some things maybe, but I think just to go back to the noise and the dust, Meyer's going to be required to purchase and supply equipment that can be used by the city and or its consultants.
It's on both those topics.
On both of those topics, noise monitoring and dust monitoring. Dust monitoring is to be monitored for both what's called PM10 and PM2.5. PM10 is, you could think of that's the dust you see, that's the nuisance dust, if you will. PM2.5 is respirable dust, which is would be the concern over inhalation hazards. So we will have the ability to test both of those and the ability to test. We will have possession of the equipment. At the end of the day, it gets returned to Meyer after all is done. But we will have possession of it, the ability to use it, and ability to test at our discretion and not theirs. So we can do a regular testing. We can do it. We would do it without notifying them, or we can do event testing as well. So if we have an event, and it's sometimes going to be hard to capture an event, but we'll at least have the ability to do that if we need to. So I think that's important. You mentioned the hours. That essentially what that means is they're pushed back on the mining operation an hour in the morning, so they're not starting up at 6 a.m. They're starting up at 7 a.m. So I think that's somewhat helpful. Let's see what else. Just an important point on the term. And David mentioned that the dry mining, the above ground mining, if you will, is done by the end of 2024. The wet mining by the end of 2026. The reclamation of the entire site and removal of equipment from the base and final reclamation, providing a future extension of the north does not go beyond 2026. All of that will happen 18 months after mining stops. So, for example, in 2022, if the north side was extended by simply 4 years, it would all end at the same time then, 18 months after, so it'd be June of 2028. If the north is extended anytime beyond December of 2026, then the final reclamation would happen 18 months after the end date of the north. Now that means the conveyor equipment and the wash plant, and obviously loading material from the piles would continue until the north is finished, and for up to 18 months after that. At that point in time, then both sides would end up being reclaimed. But again, if the north was only, for example, extended for 4 years, and again, that's a future decision, then it would all end in 2026, and final reclamation would be in 2028. One other thing on the reclamation, there's a plan for, when you mentioned parcel A, there was some, even though it's not part of the permitted area, it's been zoned industrial for probably 20 years now. There were some areas that are, call it suspect on the reclamation that was done in the past, and Meyer has agreed to go back and fix those by the end of 2021. So that will be, they have that long to repair that. And then the Hall Road, when all is said and done and everything's completely finished, the last thing that happens in reclamation is the berms come down and they become part of the slopes. But the Hall Road that goes from the bottom of the mine up to the industrial area will be closed at that point in time, and will actually be, if you think about it, there's a slope between Valley View School that extends down towards that Hall Road, and what will happen is that slope will be continued to the edge of that pond that's there. And the pond will stay. So the Hall Road will end up being closed. So in the future, if it's which is supposed to be a residential subdivision, it will not have a connection to the industrial area. And let's see, I think that's, you hit the fees, you hit the fines and the penalties. I think that's covers most of it.
The overall operation hours are still starting at 5 a.m. for loading. Mining is at 7.
5 to 8.
Is that
Right.
5 to 8.
Okay. That didn't change.
That didn't change.
Okay. So yeah, thank you.
But you know, all these trucks are using white noise now for their backup alarms, which is really good.
Oh.
That was a big deal.
One other thing, there was a concern during the whole process from residents about the road, track out on the 120.
Right.
Meyer is required by agreement, and they did before, but they're required now to inspect the trucks as they leave the property, and they're required to sweep the area entering onto 120 minimum twice per week, and then if the city requires it at another time.
So, from a procedural standpoint, the way this is arranged on the agenda is a motion to approve the ordinance authorizing, the ordinance approving the extension of the conditional use permit, subject to approval of the next action, which is the annexation agreement. The reason that's there is because the special use ordinance only requires a majority to pass. But we understand the difference in voting, so we combine them in the sense of making the first motion subject to approval of the second one, which requires a higher vote of 2/3 or 6 of you, including the mayor. So nothing's going to pass unless 6 of you agree. If 6 don't agree, the whole thing fails on both actions, essentially. So that's how that's made up. Again, before we vote, I want to thank Randy and Tom from Meyer. You know, we had Donald Trump over here negotiating for us. It was tough. I mean, it was really, really tough on them and on us because it was nail biters at the cliff, and we had our moments. It was really, really hard, and I thought Meyer was very professional throughout it, and so was Scott, of course. The mayor did what he needed to do to get off the cliff as well, and I appreciate that, and we're here, so let's see if we can get it done. Thank you.
And thank you, David, for all you've done through this whole process. I'm so glad I won't see no more emails from you.
Right, for now.
For now. But before we go ahead and have discussion on this, I gotta say to Alderman Curry, phenomenal job on during this whole thing. Absolutely amazing how much work and effort he put into this. We know that every constituent won't be happy with whatever outcome happens, but great job, Scott.
Yep.
I'm gonna go ahead and open up for discussion. Alderwoman Condon.
I just kind of wanted to go along with what you just said. I know it's your job, David, but thank you very much for all the work that you've done. And also, I think that people probably don't understand that it's not like you get paid by the minute or hour for the time and effort you've put in. And this has been a project that has gone above and beyond anything that I've seen in 16 years that an alderman had to put in a lot of time and effort and that much investment with the constituents. And so I just wanted to recognize that of you, Scott, because I think that's you. And I've relied on a lot of the information that you've shared with us, because you have such a personal investment and have shared that with us, so it's been very useful to me as well. So I know it's been a lot of back and forth, and as in anything, not everyone's gonna walk away feeling, 100%, but I think the negotiations that have gone on with everyone in this have been long and but done with trying to get to that compromise of getting the best that we can. Everyone can walk away and feel like they've reached an agreement that can be acceptable, so thank you to all parties.
Any other discussion, comments before I go to public? Sandy?
Do we have I'm trying to review this as I'm going along, do we have a set time of year when we'll have reports done from Lafarge? Would that be done every spring, fall, or at the end of mining season?
That was supposed to be at the end of the mining season.
Okay. So it'll be late year or maybe
Annually,
January?
yeah, a year from now.
Okay. Yep. Approximately December. So,
Go ahead.
and really, I want to look towards Randy right now. Thank you. I know it's been tough, expressed with Scott, and I can reiterate that too, but hey, you've put a lot of time into this. I understand, you're on the other side of the table. You did come to us real early with open arms, and I'm not sure how many took your invite in regards to just checking things out. We do appreciate that, and in negotiations, you have to kind of set things up in regards to what's A, B, and C, and I know there was a lot of bouncing back and forth in regards to what was completed in this negotiation, and that's normally what happens. You understand that there's certain key things that you want to try to preserve. There's going to be give and take. I'm very happy that this process has been completed, and I look forward to moving ahead. Thank you.
Alderman Glad?
Yeah. I just wanted to again commend Alderman Curry on a job more than well done. Again, through the entire county, I don't remember ever seeing an alderman or a trustee as aggressive and as deep as he dug on everything here. All I got to say for Lafarge is when that property gets developed, I expect to see the entranceway saying Scott Curry Way. I'm serious, because that's how this went, Scott Curry Way.
I think that would be the council's decision.
Well, that's the way the proposal should be.
That's right.
So, that's all I got.
Any other discussion, comments?
Make sure that gets in the minutes.
At this time, we turn it over to the public. Is there any public comment on this item? See none? I'm looking for a motion to approve item 7A as presented. Alderman Curry.
I'd like to make that motion.
Perfect. Second? Alderman Condon. Discussion on this item? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Curry.
Yes.
Alderwoman Condon.
Yes.
Alderman Devine.
Yes.
Alderman Mahavik.
Yes.
Alderman Schaper.
Yes.
Alderman Glab.
Yes.
Alderman Santi.
Yes.
Mayor?
Anything?
No, he's on
No,
the
next
next
one.
one.
Next one.
Next one.
Thank you, council. Next item on the agenda is 7B. This is a motion to approve an ordinance authorizing the mayor to sign and deputy city clerk to attest an amendment to the South Meyer material annexation agreement. Alderman Curry.
You looking for the motion?
Yes.
I'll make that motion.
Second, Alderman
I will
Sandy.
second this motion.
Discussion on this item.
Just to comment, in case anybody is wondering, the language on both of these is essentially the same. So, as it was not necessarily in the past, with the ordinance versus the agreement, in this case, we've made them pretty much identical, other than the lawyer verbiage that has to go in the preambles and things.
Perfect. Any other discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Curry.
Yes.
Alderman Santi.
Yes.
Alderman Glab.
Yes.
Alderman Schaper.
Yes.
Alderman Mahavik.
Yes.
Alderman Devine.
Yes.
Alderwoman Condon.
Yes.
Mayor Chad.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
See you, David.
Thank you.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything.
Thank you, Randy. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you all.
Thanks, Randy.
Happy holidays to you.
You too.
You too. Next item on the agenda is discussion to approve an ordinance granting a conditional use permit to allow a tavern, outdoor seating with alcohol and smoking area, food trucks, and outdoor entertainment. Mr. Martin, can you please present this item?
Thank you, Mayor Jett. Council is being asked to consider a conditional use permit to allow a tavern, outdoor seating with alcohol and smoking area, food trucks, and outdoor entertainment. This is at the former McDonald's building at 522 South Illinois Route 31.
Thank you. At this time, I'll open up for discussion by council. Is there any questions? We do have the applicant here this evening as well, so if you have any questions. Alderman Glavine.
Yeah. We're looking at a conditional use for these, to be able to use, bring them in for special events. However, if you look at the way the ordinance is written, it says it complies with the site plan. And unless I'm mistaken, I don't see any place where the trailers are approved, you know, on a map. It shows where they would be placed. That should be put in there as far as the fact that they still should come back to council as far as approval for those trailers, because it's not on the map. I mean,
What you mean the food trucks?
food trucks, yeah. Well, it says trailers, doesn't it, or whatever, as far as the conditional use. But all I'm saying is according to the ordinance, it's according to the plan, and there's nothing on the plan as far as showing where those trucks go. So it's kind of just open-ended for interpretation.
Well, the ordinance specifies outdoor entertainment. You're correct that it doesn't specify exactly where the food trucks go.
So you're asking us basically to approve it blinded, you know, without knowing where these trucks are gonna go. We have no say on it or anything else. All I'm saying is there should be some clarification as far as where those trailers go. And I'd be happy with the rest of it, you know, the rest of it's fine. But I think it needs to be specified somewhere in there.
I don't want to speak for the applicant, but I don't know if they would be the same every specific time he had an event. Because there may be more than one food truck.
So then, maybe we shouldn't put it in the ordinance as far as allowing the food trucks, and we do it on a special, you know, one at a time, as far as where we would allow it. Because
Sammy, can you help us out a little bit?
Yes, I can tell you. The food truck is not gonna be every time. Like everybody asks me, it's like every weekends. No, it's not gonna be every weekends. It's gonna be like maybe 3 times a year. Maybe possibly 4 times a year we're gonna do. It's not, because we're gonna do the food, we cannot do food anything anywhere over there inside the building. So we're gonna put all local, just a lot of local restaurants. So we're gonna keep it all local restaurants. They're gonna come, we're gonna put all menus and everything. So people can order over there from food trucks. So only we keep it like 4 times, and we have the parking spot. We can, like, you go to Crystal Lake Brewery, they're parking in the front. And so we have a lot of handicap parking in the front in the building, so we can park over there. And I talked to the Carlo Di Carlo. There's a lands over there. When you walk in McDonald's, you know, one side is a totally nice empty land. So they can park over there too.
they can park where the handicap is?
Handicap is in the side. You can, this is a couple spot over there. You can park food truck over there. There's a corner in 31 and Boulogne. That's a big spot. This is like kitty corner. Nobody park over there. That's also, they can park over there too. Food truck. Maybe we have a couple food truck.
So I missed, so where exactly would the?
Yeah,
It's gonna be 31. You go like 31 and Boulogne Road. That's a corner.
Yeah.
Between,
Right
this
at the
is a
corner?
parking over there in a corner. They can park over there. That's a nice park. You can park at least 2 over there. And when you enter over there, you know, 31, you come in like a Sam's Liquor, there's an entry over there, there's a whole empty lot. It's a landscaping right now, and you can park over there too.
many, I'm sorry, how many food trucks would you normally think that you'd have there?
I think it's gonna be happen maybe 1 or 2. It's not gonna be like 3, 4, no.
They could park in a parking space.
Yes.
No, we have 55 parking
Yeah,
at 55 and 60.
And I don't wanna, I mean, I don't wanna speak for Alderman Glad, but if we had I mean, Sam, would you be comfortable saying that the food trucks would be designated like on one side of the building where it's in those parking slots to the east of the building, or possibly the parking slots to the south side of the building? South, is that what you're, yep, you follow
Yeah.
where I'm at?
South side.
I mean,
South
we're-
side.
Yeah,
We always know that when they're there, they'll be in that designated area.
yeah.
Are you comfortable with that?
I don't know,
wanna
Bob.
speak for-
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
As long as we have a location and we, you know, it's not open-ended, that's all my concerns.
Cause, I mean, just looking at it, I guess, you know, there's gonna be food, people are gonna be in and out, and I guess you don't wanna go going too far outside the building, and then when you have, you know, I'm not gonna tell him when he can have his events, but if you're gonna have inclement weather, I assume you're probably gonna have some people shuffling, you know, things in and out also.
Yeah.
But if you're comfortable, I'm just one person, but
Sure,
if you're comfortable with
definitely.
the south spaces,
Yeah.
always having the trucks in those designated spaces, I mean, we could place that in there, correct?
I could write that in ordinance, food
Okay.
trucks shall be parked on south side of building.
Yeah.
It's fine with me.
In parking
At least
spaces.
we've got something in there that shows, you know. Otherwise, you can put it on the roof.
Is there, oh, Alderman Curry, sorry.
Yeah, just another question for Sam. I'm looking at the interior of the building.
Mhm.
I don't see any place for video gaming. Do you have any intentions
No.
of?
No,
So you're gonna categorically say you're not gonna do video gaming there?
no.
Thank you.
He will not do it.
I wanna do it, I can do it 2 years ago, when I still keep it, no, so.
Alderman Mahevik?
Got a few things.
Sure.
What's the distance from the right in, right out on Route 31 to Miller Road approximately? Do we know? Approximately.
75, 50 feet?
120, 140
75
feet, something like that.
It's more than that.
Is it more than that?
Hold on, I can look. It's gonna be
500.
250 feet, 300 feet. That's a good distance. To the intersection?
Of Miller, 31?
Yeah.
What's the speed limit of northbound traffic on 31 at that intersection?
Northbound?
Yeah.
45.
40?
45.
45.
Okay. Has any effort been made to the north property owner to open up access between this site and the gas station?
We talked to Carlo Di Carlo, he don't wanna expense any money, not in a dime, he says, nope, he don't wanna do it, otherwise I like to do it, somebody can put it in a split. I'm still doing the negotiations, because he wanna put the signs, the building, because the whole building, Carlo Di Carlo, like, I have Sam's Liquor, Grey Clips, everybody have, there's no signs in the street. So he wanna put me signs over there, I'm working on it, maybe what we can do. Maybe I can put a sign with him and maybe he can open it, maybe he expends the money, something, or they put a parking, or we can go through.
If he was agreeable to it, would you put up the money to open up access between your site and his?
I offer him, I said, we can do 50-50, when he don't wanna put any money, when I said I offer him, I can put your sign, so he says maybe he think about it.
Who was your property seller when you bought the property? Who was your seller?
I bought it with McDonald's,
Okay. Have you approached them about releasing their deed restriction?
yeah,
Yes.
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 And the answer
Didn't
is
work.
flat no, they wouldn't even talk to you?
They have very, very tight restrictions, that they,
They wouldn't work. with us.
we went down that path, and, can't do it.
Okay, thank you.
Which is horrible, but. Alderman Devine?
I want to go back to the food truck question, and maybe ask the applicant, are you okay with having the food trucks on the south side? Wouldn't it block your visibility
That's
would
fine.
the east side or the north side of the building be more?
Should be okay, because my building is gonna be, when we done it, it's gonna be look different totally. So it's gonna be high ceiling, it's gonna be totally different, so should be okay. It's not gonna be all the time though, yeah.
Alderman Santi?
Do you have set hours? I mean, do you know what you look, I mean, I understand you can stay open real late, but are you gonna be open during the day also?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But daytime, we're gonna close early, not like at 1 o'clock, no.
You-
In the night,
True.
like a daytimes,
Uh-huh.
daytimes, we don't know yet what we're gonna open hours, when we still open in the morning.
And you said you may even close earlier than what what you can do with your
Yeah.
liquor license?
Yeah.
Safe.
Yeah?
It's
Thanks.
safer.
That's all I have right now.
Any other discussion, questions for Sammy? Alderman Glab?
All I wanna say is Sam's been business in McHenry for a long, long time, and we do appreciate the way you run your businesses, and I have no qualms about this, other than the loose end that we needed to tie up, and good luck
Thank you.
if it gets approved.
Alderman Santi?
Alderman Glad. Words out of my mouth. No, you said, he's proved it. I mean, you can go around town and you can point to, I don't know how many, can't get to that number right now, but, no, okay. He's been a very active, kind of unique opportunity here, and he's been a successful businessman, and I don't see why this won't be a success also.
Alderman Condon?
While it's not something that I will be utilizing, I do see the significance of it being so unique, and love that it's gonna be here in McHenry, and I'm sure knowing quite a few other, especially gentlemen, that will be utilizing it, so I think it's great. My dad is a cigar smoker, my husband, we order online, getting stuff for him, and to be able to go and pick it out locally, I think would be great, so thank you for bringing this to us.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, Sammy, you may have a seat. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, I open up for public comment. Is there anyone in the public that would like to make a public comment at this time?
Good evening. I just wanted to make a comment to Alderman Glab's statement about placing the location and restricting the location on the food trucks. Someone who will probably visit that establishment on occasion, I've not heard of any other facilities in town that have a restriction like that on their use of where they would put that. I would think that other businesses who have the same licensing and the same availability to have a food truck at their establishment probably don't have that same restriction on their place as well. So just my 2 cents from someone who might be visiting that establishment. And I think Alderman Devine has a pretty good point about blocking the visibility from the roadway from being on the south side of that establishment. Being on the north side or the east side might be a better idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment at this time? At this time, looking for a motion to approve an ordinance granting a conditional use permit to allow a tavern, outdoor seating with alcohol and smoking area, food trucks, and outdoor entertainment. And then also with the condition of location of the food trucks on the south side. Alderman Glab?
I'll make that motion.
Second. Alderman Condon? Discussion on this item.
I just have one further question. If after operation and the trucks, it's not working out, but the trucks are there, what would be required to come in to approve a different site location?
If it was a safety hazard, we'd make them do it immediately.
Okay, but what if it wasn't, if it just wasn't?
You'd have to amend the ordinance.
Okay, so they have to amend the ordinance. Okay. But that is, but just for the record, that is something that's possible if necessary.
So it would have to go to planning and zoning again in order to do that, which really. I'd rather not see any restrictions on it, only because
Well,
he's gonna listen to what, we have a good relationship with Sammy, obviously. I think if we told him, hey, this is it gonna work, or if he comes to us as just going to the city and saying, hey, this is what I'm looking to do on this event, I think he would do whatever's safer and right for his business.
I
That's my
agree.
opinion.
So maybe what is necessary, based on what Alderman Glad brought forth, is that we just remove that part from, what is listed, because it says, excuse me, according to the site location. So maybe if we just remove that, then it's open to what works out best for his business. As you said, he's gonna do what works out best for both his customers and.
Right. I'll move that.
Yeah. I can't see just leaving it open-ended, if we limit it to 2 trucks, I wouldn't have a problem. But I mean, the way you have it, he could have as many trucks as he wants out there. We don't have, anything specific, it states anything. I mean, then it's open-ended. You don't wanna start a precedence like that, most businesses have always had to come in for conditional uses on events like that, and I'm willing to bend, but not just totally to where we don't put something in there, again, what would stop the next business from just coming in and wanting the same thing? Eventually, why have a conditional use, because we're not reviewing anything.
Can we put it where the actual, city employees would go ahead and approve that?
That'd be
versus-
fine.
If we would have it, put it in the cities, the people that we.
Since it's
pay money
only
to,
be
let
3 or
them-
4 times a year, that makes
Right,
sense.
and I say let
That's
them have
fine.
the control and make sure it's approved by city staff.
That's fine then, at least, again, we have some control at city level, and
Some review.
that's all I ask. So I'll
Do we
make
have to amend?
a motion to amend that, to
Yep.
that caveat, and take out the other. And if Alderman Condon would change that, that'd be fine. Cool.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Alderman Schaefer.
Just, again, Doug, is that condition or that ordinance stays with the, business or the property? Property, okay, thank you.
Alderman Curry.
Just a technical point, do we now have a motion and then a motion to amend that motion? Because we had a motion and a second, right? So.
We got a motion
Did we
to
make
amend
a
and a
motion?
second.
So we need to have 2 votes here.
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to be clear with you.
Yeah.
Where we're going.
We're good, right? Kelly, we're good?
You're good. You can do it either way. If the maker of the motion agrees with the amendment and the second also agrees, you can do it that way. The more formal way is to actually make a motion to amend the motion.
That just sounds like a lot more work.
It sounds like a lot more work, and it sounds like Alderman Dodd is good with the amended motion, and Alderwoman Condon is good
Just
with the
want to be
second.
clear.
Okay, so it's just gonna be one vote?
One
Yes.
vote.
Any other discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Glad?
Yes.
Alderwoman Condon?
Yes.
Alderman Mahavik?
No.
Alderman Devine?
Yes.
Alderman Curry?
Yes.
Alderman Schaefer?
Yes.
Alderman Santi?
Yes.
Thank you, council.
Good luck.
Good luck, Sammy.
Thank you, everyone.
Next item on the agenda is discussion to adopt an ordinance amending the fiscal year 18-19 budget, Fund 200 Tourism Fund, in the amount of $331,000 for the purchase of the property described below, and a motion to authorize the mayor to sign and deputy clerk to attest the purchase of the agreement and all closing documents with McHenry Savings Bank relating to the city's acquisition of 3 parcels located on Green Street.
It's actually 4, sorry.
4 parcels located on Green Street and south of Route 120, and totaling approximately 1.59 acres for a purchase price of $611,000, plus an applicable closing costs. So. Good.
Thank you,
Derek.
Mayor. Yes, this, based on input from council, this is carrying out that input of purchasing 4 parcels, and actually I put a color version of the parcel map in front of council with the amended or revised agenda tonight. for the purchase of those four parcels from McHenry Savings Bank. The total cost is $611,000 from the tourism fund. Also with input from council, the motion includes a 50% down, which is $305,500. The budget amendment ordinance is for $331 to be able to make sure that we pay the 50% down and then have funds that were not budgeted that are now part of the budget amendment to pay 4 or 5 months worth of payments once the payment option kicks in for that. So that's the reason for the budget amendment and what the scope of this purchase agreement is for. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Discussion by council on this item? Alderman Curry?
Just a comment. So in the motion, we talk about the purchase and financing of 4 parcels. So,
Yeah.
so that, just to be clear, we're talking about in the future that annual or whatever payment it is on the loan is coming from the tourism fund.
Yeah, I apologize. We talked about that and I was gonna add that as part of my discussion. Yes, so, and council can make it part of the motion, or at least it's in the record here. We will make sure that future budgets include the payments for that 5-year option agreement. That's the one that we're going with, the 5-year at 3.5%, as part of the tourism fund that will come out of that budget. Yes.
Alderman Glenn?
Yeah, normally when we do any kind of a finance, we've got to pledge some kind of tax. Are we just pledging the tourism tax? Is the bank fine with that?
Well, Carolyn may be able to answer it more, but because we're putting 50% down, it's just, we're not really bonding it. It's just, and they're not asking for any pledge of a specific amount. We're just entering into a purchase agreement with them, so they didn't ask for anything more specific than that as part of the purchase agreement. Yeah.
Any other comments? Questions? This time I open it up for public comment. Is there anyone in the public that wants to make a public comment at this time? No. At this time, I'm looking for a motion for item 7D as presented. Alderman Santi.
I'll make that motion.
Second. Alderman Thomas.
Just for clarification, is it with the intent that the money comes from out of the tourism? I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Sorry.
Good call. Yes.
Thank you.
Second?
Yes.
Okay. Discussion on this item? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Santee,
Yes.
Alderwoman Kent.
Yes.
Alderman Devine.
Yes.
Alderman McHenry.
Yes.
Alderman Curry.
Yes.
Alderman Schaper.
Yes.
Alderman Glad.
Yes.
Alderman Santi.
Yes, again.
Oh, you started.
No.
You
Oh, I'm
started.
sorry.
You get 2 votes.
We got 8
Thank you.
yeses. Thank you, council. Next item on the agenda is 7E, is discussion to approve an ordinance replacing and adopting new, existing, and future lane use maps for the City of McHenry Comprehensive Plan and Development Policies, and an ordinance adopting a consistency policy for the City of McHenry Comprehensive Plan and Development Policies. Doug, please present.
Thank you, Mayor. Last September, the Planning and Zoning Commission started looking at the future land use map, which was not updated since 2005. As part of the initial step in updating maps and ordinances, and through several meetings thereafter, before you is a proposed updated future land use map. Also before you is a proposed updated existing land use map, which we have both of these right now. These are just updated versions of both those maps. We also have before you a consistency policy, which all that is policy which states that the any zoning map amendment should be consistent between the comprehensive plan and the zoning map, and the Planning and Zoning Commission should write findings why it is consistent, and if it's not consistent, then the comprehensive plan should be amended to change the land use so it is consistent. So that just puts that into a formal policy. So these are 3 policy documents that are proposed for your consideration this evening. Two gentlemen in the audience are here. Sean Strack, who's the chairperson of the Planning and Zoning Commission, very instrumental in this. There's several parts of this map. One is adopts a McHenry loop, which was really his an idea, which he kind of sold to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and everybody embraced, which I go into more detail in the supplement about that, as well as Jim Walsh on the Planning and Zoning Commission. So I'll just be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Doug. Alderman Curry?
Yeah, how often will this be updated?
Well, at the Planning and Zoning Commission, we kind of took a vow to look at it every year so that we would not leave it alone for 12 years.
Right, because I mean, we obviously annexed property, in fact, you know, the Speedway, you know, that's actually annexed that, right, recently? Right.
So the zoning map by state law has to be updated every year.
Okay.
So we do that every year. This one, we essentially did not update for 13 years.
Yeah, because it's a plan, okay, all right. But the intent is to do it.
Every year,
Every
yeah,
year going
we'd like to do
forward.
that.
All right.
Alderman Glad?
Yeah. How do we wind up in one neighborhood where on one side of the street we have medium density and then we have low density across the street? Which in the middle of a subdivision that's 50 years old. Hopefully.
Are you talking, I'm looking at it right now.
See where it says post office?
I'm looking at the post office right now.
Not at the post office, but you see where it's written post office, you know, with the arrow that goes down to the post office?
Yes.
Okay, that green area there, that's L.B. Anderson's property. And then
Right.
Then you have the dotted lines, and right
Right.
after that is Oakwood. And if you take a look on the west side of Oakwood, you have low density, and you have medium density, and the rest of it on the other side of Oakwood.
I see the medium density is all the single family.
Medium density is the 10, and then in the
Oh,
yellow.
the green, are you talking about, oh, the
Yellow.
The yellow.
The yellow in between.
oh, I see what you're saying. It's probably just it's probably an error.
Okay, we can get that changed. And, you know, could you explain a little bit more on the environmental corridors? What that's supposed to mean?
Environmental corridors?
Yeah.
It's just areas that are environmentally sensitive. Could be wetlands, could be hydric soils, could be stuff that's not desirable to develop.
Okay, so.
It's not that we went out and did soil testing, but if you look on an aerial, it could be wet. It could be a wetland on an aerial.
Mhm.
Could be a floodplain.
Well, floodplain could get built. The soil conditions, that's a whole different story. So that I can see the environmental, and I'm glad to see that in here. But I noticed there's a lot of green areas like that. Is there that many areas throughout that corridor that are environmental issues?
Well, I don't necessarily think that that means that they're not gonna get built. It just means that you have to, not you, but you have to recognize that they could be environmentally sensitive. So that's why we try to highlight them, but they're not also exactly perfect in terms of the mapping.
All right. And again, we just received these maps tonight, so I haven't had a good chance to look at the whole thing. Needless to say, when you blow this up, you kind of lose the clarity of the maps. I would like to see this map as a whole, could have looked at it, you know, each alderman could have looked at the wards as far as errors or whatever. Although, I don't know, how much does that affect proposals down the road? Do you think developers are gonna throw it in our face that, well, this says this or that, and once things change because that's what our plan says?
Environmental?
No, as far as land uses and everything else. Because it was done to us, if you remember, the Jurstad annexation agreement south of Legend Lakes years back. We took and we had, just on the one corner, we had just for a small amount of a neighborhood commercial, but then when somebody drew the map, they put in, I forget how many acres, and then all of a sudden now we've got, you know, when we did that annexation agreement, we approved a huge shopping area, which the intent was just to have a local, small shopping strip, you know, so that if somebody needed a cleaner, somebody needed a 7-Eleven or something, you know, they wouldn't have to go all the way into town to get it. Consequently, you could have a full-size food mart in that area there now that what was approved. When that ever gets developed at the corner of Curran and Bullet. So that's why it's important when I see things like that, that, you know, we get those things changed and that we're awful careful of what we're putting on a map so that developers or people that come in for development don't take and use that against us.
So I can answer that from a legal perspective.
Uh-huh.
I mean, the courts have held that a comprehensive plan is a guide, it's not set in stone, you're not legally bound by it. We've had litigation where people have tried to utilize our comp plan against us, and we quickly amended the comp plan to fix whatever problem that there was, and that holds up in court. And it sounds like the staff and the planning and zoning is also gonna be looking at this on a regular basis as we see issues. If an issue comes up, we can quickly go back to the planning and zoning, make that correction. You know, I think that's how, it's a living, growing document.
And I understand it. However, the last one.
That's not to say that people aren't gonna try to use it against you.
Exactly. So I just ask maybe every alderman to just look at their section of the map or the working part, and let's just make sure it's right so that we don't wind up with those problems in the future if somebody try to use it against us. Only because of the fact that it doesn't make us look good if it isn't right.
I mean, I've looked at this map, I can't tell you how many times.
I know one person could look at it until you're blurry, you know.
And
I
found a lot of
understand that.
mistakes.
And again, that's right around the corner from my house, so I knew right off the bat that something wasn't right there. It all started because I was looking at that environmental corridor because that's an area that I always worry about. Matter of fact, that's another good question as far as okay. Now, that other area shows environmental now, and that's fine. So that's all I've got.
Alderman Condon?
Yeah, couple things I was gonna actually say, when our attorney so much more eloquently said that, you know, it is a working document, and time and time again, it's what our guidelines should be, but any petitioner has the ability to come in and ask for changes. The other thing I just wanted to ask, and I'm making the assumption because I think I read in here, the planning and zoning went through this, correct?
Yes.
And they've studied it, so while I agree it would have been nice, especially in color, because I'm a very visual person, to have these maps in color in our hands earlier to review a little bit more concise. I also believe that planning and zoning did work through them pretty extensively. I believe I saw on their agenda several meetings, correct, where this was addressed and looked at, and it was their intention for us to review with their recommendations. So that gives me some comfort that it's not just staff, it was the whole planning and zoning commission, so it had multiple eyes on it. Correct?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And if you all see things, just send Doug an email and meet with them. You know, if you guys see something that needs to be changed, that's easy to fix. Any other discussion on this item? Alderman Glad?
Yeah, just the, well, I guess that's coming up as far as talking about the agricultural. You know, I know in past annexations, we've had agreements for agricultural and all that until the development time, but we want to see agricultural, you know, basically do the annexation for the development of agricultural. You got areas out there that have been agricultural for what, well over 20 years. In some cases, a lot longer than that. But just the LB Anderson property over there on the other side of the creek has been there since it was supposed to be a golf course back in 1965. So, I don't know, with that, I'll wait until that comes up.
Alderman Sandy?
Just Deputy Administrator Martin and Planning and Zoning, thank you very much for the time you guys devoted to this. I have a couple of questions, but I think it's just my word, and nothing to adjust tonight, but I'll send them off to you.
Okay.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Any other discussion? This time I'll open up for public comment. Is there anyone in the public that would like to make a public comment? At this time, looking for a motion to approve 7E as presented. Alderman Curry?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Seconded by Alderman Santi.
I will second the motion.
Discussion? My counsel?
Just I'd like to thank planning and zoning as well for putting a lot of work into it, and take a look at it. If there's something that doesn't, we can always get it. And it's good to hear it's gonna get changed, you know, or updated on a yearly basis. So that's good.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Curry?
Yes.
Alderman Santi?
Yes.
Alderman Glad?
Yes.
Alderman Schaper?
Yes.
Alderman Mahavik?
Yes.
Alderman Devine?
Yes.
Alderwoman Kett?
Yes.
Thank you, counsel. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is discussion to approve an ordinance adopting a text amendment to the City of McHenry zoning ordinance, adding a new zoning district classification titled Agriculture District, and an ordinance adopting a text amendment to the City of McHenry zoning ordinance and adding a new zoning district clarification titled Mixed Use Districts. Doug, can you please present this item?
Thank you, Mayor Jett. These are two text amendments proposed to the zoning ordinance that the Planning and Zoning Commission also worked on to complement the land use categories that were on the future land use map. So proposed before you is an agricultural zoning district and a mixed use zoning district. I'll just say that we do have an agricultural and mining overlay district. However, it's extremely limited, and there's no what we call bulk standards, so setbacks, stuff like that. The mixed use district, we do have categories designated on the land use plan, designated as mixed use district. It is not our intent, or as a staff, or I think planning and zoning, to rezone properties. It was the intent when forming this district to, if a property is annexed in and it's designated as mixed use district, that it could be developed within the guidelines of this proposed district. And we do have a District C4, which allows mixed use, commercial and residential. Again, very limited. Basically, that's all that allows is residential, commercial. We have a downtown overlay district, which allows a little bit more, but again, that's limited to the downtown area. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Doug. Any questions by council? Comments? Alderman Glenn?
Can you give us an example of any other counties or towns in the county that have gone to this adoption of an agricultural mixed-use zoning districts?
The agricultural is much the same as the county has, not the town, but the county. The mixed use is very common. I don't know in towns, in McHenry County, I don't know all their ordinances, but there's many communities that have mixed use districts. I know a lot of communities east of here have them, but I don't know off the top of my head in McHenry County.
See, part of my concern is if we create a mixed-use zoning district or an agricultural zoning district, once that's on the books, if somebody is within the city, they can take and they can petition to change that zoning on their property to one of these zonings that are already in our books. Right now, if somebody wanted to come in and do an agricultural zoning, we don't have a zoning for agriculture, correct? Correct. But if we create this, then, and I guess I would throw that to Kelly a little bit as far as that question. Would that not give them the ability and the right? Granted, it's still the council's decision at the end, but.
Yeah, if you don't have a category, then there's nothing for them to ask for. If you have the category, then they're at least allowed the step of asking for it. They still have to show it's the highest and best use.
Mm-hmm.
And if we have sufficient evidence to show that's not highest and best use, courts usually defer to our legislative discretion.
It still winds up the same way with the mixed use as well. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion, questions by council? Alderman Schaefer?
Was the goal of adding the mixed use, what was the commission's goal of adding the mixed use? Was that to make that area more beneficial to development, or where were you going with that?
The goal is, so we created this kind of loop to that goes around town, and part of the loop is to utilize existing infrastructure and to utilize the bicycle network and the bicycle paths and link the park areas. And part of it goes by McCollum Lake Road, and there's a couple properties I can think of along McCollum Lake Road that are not within the city that we thought, well, is this residential, is this commercial? I mean, it wasn't just me, it was we were having this discussion at the commission level, and we thought, no, it could be either. So we thought that they would make good mixed-use properties. So there were multiple properties, at least along that stretch, that we thought would make good mixed-use properties, that we're trying to create more of that pedestrian environment along this McHenry loop that was outside of the downtown area. That was near Peterson Park, that was not specifically downtown.
So it was really more intended for that bike loop versus the future development for that area, kind of a thing. It wasn't, meaning your goal wasn't to bring in more development that you think would use that area under the mixed use title.
No, I think it's both. I think it's definitely for future development.
Okay.
I don't think it's that somebody's gonna come in, and I think it's somebody's gonna come in and redevelop. These are all properties that are older or for sale, that somebody's gonna either buy and redevelop or develop to begin with, that could go one way or the other. They're on a major road, but they could have a residential and a commercial component.
And without it, we would take a look at those on a case-by-case basis anyway, correct? Wouldn't we?
Right, You're right, you could do it by annexation, you know, so.
Okay, that's all I had, thank you. I don't have a I was just trying to figure out what that was intended for.
That was kind of the thought process.
Thanks.
Any other questions, comments? Alderman Glad?
Again, all I do is I find it very difficult to take and don't change it and creating zoning districts that aren't really beneficial to us in the long run. And again, for every action, there's a reaction, and for every positive, there's a negative. And you tend to wind up when you create extra zoning that you really don't want to see for whatever reason. I mean, you know, you can always put that in an annexation agreement. But you're opening up the doors of existing properties to come in and ask for those changes to those zoning districts, and that's the problem I've got. So that's all I got.
I did a quick search because I thought I remember that we did this when I was in my previous community, and Woodstock has an ag district, zoning district, basically the same type of reason that it was developed or established that we've already talked about here. It doesn't, not preventing future development options when population growth establishes a need or desire to convert the land from ag to higher intensity. You know, there's a process for it to be able to do that, but they have an ag one there. I knew they did just because I remembered it.
Alderman Condon?
I love the mixed use zoning. I think it allows developers to be creative. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Any other questions, comments? Open it up right now for public comment, public input. Is there anyone in the public that would like to make a public comment?
Just to give some clarification on why we came up with those zoning districts. I am Sean Strack, I'm the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. The mixed use properties that the commission looked at, the reason we went with the mixed use was for some properties along McComb Lake Road especially that are a very deep lot. They might be 5-acre properties today. They're either currently residential or currently vacant. Along that stretch by Peterson Park and the other items that are out there today, because of the depth of those properties, you might have a residential aspect in the rear of that property and a commercial aspect in the front. We don't currently have a zoning ordinance to be able to do that or to go out and present that to a developer that might want to look at that type of a property. So that's the reason that we went with that zoning ordinance and bringing that to the table today. The ag portion of that during the commission's conversations were mostly about, we always defaulted to a residential on all of the properties that aren't currently developed. So one of the things are, now I have it marked and zoned as residential property. And so everyone's thought process is, this is just residential property. To allow the commission to see those people come in and ask us for something else, and then bring that to city council, we wanted to have a buffer. So the agricultural district, and I'm gonna guess that, as Mr. Moorfield said, Woodstock probably did the same aspect for that so that they could have a little bit of land use control in the future development of those areas. I think the two uses work very well together, and as Alderwoman Condon said, mixed use is something that hasn't really marketed a lot, and I think it's a great way to be able to go after those properties and present them to developers where they don't normally see a mixed use development available today.
Thanks, Sean.
If you have any questions, please let me know.
Appreciate it. Any other questions, comments? Alderman Glad?
Yeah, I just know in the past we've taken and we've had annexation agreements to where when a property comes in, it would automatically become state zoning. And the annexation agreement would come to us at the council level right before the change in zoning. And the annexation would only be approved relying on the fact that we would approve the zoning that they requested. So if somebody has a deep lot and they want two different uses, they can request the different zoning for each of those two parcels. And, mixed uses is, again, like I said, I just feel that we're creating a problem that way. And I just wanted to bring that out, the fact that that's how we used to do it. So when it came in as, the state, it didn't stay as a state, just for a period of 2, 3 minutes, or 5 minutes, whatever it took to go to the next, category where we took and, approved the zoning right afterwards. So, and that's always seemed to work out quite well. And it does give the flexibility to a developer. I mean, they talk to staff and what they would like to do, and staff would just lead them through the process of what they needed to be done. So, that's all I got.
At this time, looking for a motion for item 7F as presented. Alderman Condon?
I will make that motion as presented.
Thank you. Second, Alderman Schaefer.
Second.
Discussion on this item? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Condon.
Yes.
Alderman Schaefer.
Yes.
Alderman Devine.
Yes.
Alderman Mahavik.
Yes.
Alderman Curry.
Yes.
Alderman Glad.
No?
Alderman Santee.
Yes.
Thank you, Council. Next item on the agenda is discussion to approve an ordinance prohibiting the use of groundwater as potable water supply by the installation or use of public or potable water supply, wells, or by any other method within a certain area in the city of McHenry. Ross Bellaraki, can you please present this item?
Thank you, Mayor. Community Development is aware of certain properties in the city limits along Lake Avenue, Route 120, and Aaron Street, which have been used over a period of time for commercial or industrial purposes. Possible contamination exists on these properties. A groundwater ordinance will prohibit the installation of private wells in a defined area.
Thank you, Ross. Discussion by council on this item? Alderman Gladden?
Yeah. If we create this ordinance tonight, and I know it goes into effect once we publish it, but how much time are we gonna give these property owners that have been pretty much running with that potable water, for what? Probably before they even got annexed into the city, 50, 60 years ago. And, how much time are they gonna be given to, take in?
All of these properties
Why?
are currently on city water.
They're what?
They're currently on city water.
They are on city.
Correct. The last one was the Autovilla property that just hooked up 2 weeks ago.
Okay,
Probably.
so then why the ordinance?
The ordinance could not be created until, it's an EPA standard. The EPA requires us to
Okay.
create the ordinance once
So-
everybody hooks up to the city.
So it's more of a bureaucracy type, okay, that's fine. That makes sense. Just didn't want to see us putting hardships on business.
No.
It's okay.
We couldn't create the ordinance without them being on the city water.
Right, okay, thank you.
Alderman Curry?
Yeah, and I know Director Ulrich and I had a brief discussion about this. The limits of the area are actually defined by the Illinois EPA, correct?
Correct.
So, I mean, and we're pretty much mandated.
We're bound to the right.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Comments? This time I'll open up for public input. Is there anyone in the public that would like to make a public comment at this time? Sean?
No, I'll stay my
You're
beer.
good? Okay, appreciate it. At this time, looking for a motion to approve 7G as presented. Alderman Santee?
I will make the motion.
Thank you.
Second,
Second?
as presented.
Second by Alderman Schaefer.
Second.
Discussion by council? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Santee.
Yes.
Alderman Schaefer.
Yes.
Alderman Glad.
Yes.
Alderman Curry.
Yes.
Alderman Mahavik.
Yes.
Alderman Devine.
Yes.
Alderwoman Condon.
Yes.
Thank you, council. Next item on the agenda is discussion to approve a request from the McHenry Riverwalk Foundation to allow construction of a brick paver pavilion and gazebo consistent with the VOA construction plan for the Riverwalk on the property of 1202 North Riverside Drive. Director Hobson, can you please present this item? That's you.
It's actually really exciting to be able to present this. I can't think of another organization that has done as much to shape our downtown as well as them to put their money where their mouth is, quite literally, in helping to either amend or add on to the Riverwalk. In this most current iteration that's before you this evening, is one that goes back to almost our inception of the plans back in 2006 when we finally finalized the VOA construction set as a whole. We went round and round as a foundation, and I say we because I sit on that board. And John, if you have anything to add, please feel free. John Smith's the current Riverwalk chairman. We went back and forth, and one of the goals has always been to how do we extend along the river. Even as a council, I think extending along the river has been that goal. Unfortunately, with the money in the coffers of the Riverwalk Foundation, at this time, it just was not feasible after the plan was completed and a thorough analysis done. So the foundation then looked at what can we complete at this point? How can we enhance and really, again, create that destination in downtown McHenry with plans that are already done, not go back to the drawing board, create more plans. We came back to the Miller Point project, and that's one that certainly has been in the news lately and on our radar as a council and as a staff. And this is something that we can accomplish. This is I call it a brick paver pavilion, but a large area that we can finish off on that point and really create a high visibility area for that boat traffic that we, even in our strategic plan, had identified as we want to try to get that traffic off the river and in our downtown. We put in public piers to be able to do that, but let's create that spot that then also, as the next item comes up, creates an event central area for them. The foundation then took those plans from VOA and through hours and hours of work by Mr. Smith, put some bid documents together, put those documents out to bid, and received those, went through those, and there was at that point an apparent low bidder that he is then sorted through. Which brings us to the point of construction and asking that permission from the city of McHenry to be able to actually construct on city property. This is a little bit different in this instance than we've done a couple other times. Two other times that I can think of that the Riverwalk Foundation has been involved. One was when the sign, the Riverwalk sign off of Green Street was put in place. The city did do the plans at that point. We paid for the engineering on those plans. Then the city bid them. The second instance was the phase 2A1 and 2A2 of the extension of the current Riverwalk. In that instance, there was a great deal of land acquisition that needed to be accomplished, and so the city did that as well as some additional engineering there as well. Then the city bid those. In both of those instances, after the city had done all of that, a check was cut to the city from the Riverwalk Foundation. In this instance, since we had completed plans that were previously approved by City Council and land that was already owned by the city, the Riverwalk Foundation proceeded in this manner, bringing us to this point where they're actually asking for permission to construct these improvements on Miller Point. And if I didn't cover it all, John, feel free to jump in there. Otherwise, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Bill. Any discussion by council on this item? Questions? Alderman McCondon?
Well, having been here through this entire process, this is really exciting because this is what we had envisioned all along. And while it's taken a long time for bit and bit, all the pieces of the Riverwalk to come together, I really applaud the Riverwalk committee for being diligent and continuing to make this a reality, because it's very exciting. Ironically, I was on the library board when the TIF first came and approved it from the library standpoint, but then seeing the documents come forth for the Riverwalk, all of it is it's just so cool. What I think everyone who's from the very beginning has had this vision of what can attract people to McHenry. I mean, there's been so much discussion about what's happening along Green Street, but I think it ties in with, it had really got started with the Riverwalk and the vision that so many people in our community have had for that. So this is awesome. Thank you. Thank you to you, John, and the whole committee.
Any other discussion? Alderman Curry?
Yeah, I just want to echo some of the things that Alderwoman Condon mentioned. That, I mean, this looks great to me. And I know one of the very first things I did, even before I was elected, is I had called up John and asked him to, you know, spend a little time with me and bring me up to speed on the Riverwalk, because I was certainly a neophyte as far as what had gone on in the past, and so I appreciate that time again. And I think we must have spent about an hour and a half talking about things, but this is really good to see. I mean, this is where we want it. I mean, we've got, well, as we know, and we're going to talk about in a minute, you know, we got a big event that we've been utilizing space out that direction, and I think this is only going to enhance that in the future. So I'm looking forward to it.
Alderman Santi?
I also want to thank you very much, John, and please pass it on to the Riverwalk Foundation Committee. You guys have done an excellent job. I just cover my bases with staff. I know we don't have anything final on Lucky Girl, but this fits in. There should be no concerns regards to, we don't have a final in regards to building size and open area.
Yeah, this fits in really well with
It
what they're
does.
doing. We've even had a conversation, initial discussion with them,
Good.
laying out these improvements. Obviously, it leads people right to their front door. It doesn't impact their building footprint in the least, and really creates that open space that they weren't in a position to be able to improve.
Well, that's one thing it definitely is going to do, is bring traffic right to their front door.
Yep. Or back door, however.
Or back door.
Whichever way, front, back.
A river person, it's front door.
Get it done without having to pay.
Yeah.
No further questions.
Thank you. Any other comments on this item? This time I'll open up for public input. Is there anyone in the public that would like to make a public comment on this item?
Can I make a comment after you vote?
Sure. At this time, I'm looking for a motion to approve agenda item 7H as presented. Alderman Santi?
I will make that motion. Thank you.
Second. Alderman Curry?
I'll second.
Discussion on this item? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Santi,
Yes.
Alderman Curry,
Yes.
Alderman Glad.
Yes.
Alderman Schaper.
Yes.
Alderman Mahavik.
Yes.
Alderman Devine.
Yes.
Alderwoman Condon. Yes.
Thank you, council. John?
Thank you very much, everybody. This is very exciting, and I just wanted to let you know that we have about $730,000 in the Riverwalk fund right now. And we are going to use approximately $650,000 to complete this work. So the Riverwalk Foundation, as far as dollars, is probably at its end. We are initiating a new fundraising website and initiative that, you know, we're hoping to really once again reignite this the passion for this Riverwalk. But once this piece is done, I think it will tie everything together really nicely. I'm bringing this up for a couple reasons. We were aiming at the back of Riverside Drive. That's what we wanted to do badly. But there is a, if you can picture the wall in front of the townhouses, where the bridge is, the pedestrian bridge, that wall is on a foundation wall 4 feet deep. So it's a very expensive wall to construct. And that whole section along Riverside Drive would have that wall. So we were talking well over $1 million just on that little section between the two bridges on Riverside Drive. So I guess what I'm saying to you is we're going to be at a point now, unless something does happen with our fundraising initiative where it takes off, we're really out of funds. And to me, I mean, it's been 20 years for us, for most of us on this Riverwalk Foundation. To me, this is the most fundamental development that the city of McHenry could undertake to improve its downtown, and also to create a vibrant downtown and create a, you know, an area that businesses want to be in, I should say. So I guess what I'm saying to the city is I hope that as we go forward, we start looking at the potential, and I know how tight it is for the city funding wise, but in order to get Riverside Drive done, we're going to have some type of cooperation in order to accomplish that. And I think that is probably the most important piece. That's as far as my opinion. I feel badly that we couldn't get it done this time. So I just wanted to bring that up to you, that really to go forward, it's gonna be a big city help it's gonna require city help. Unless, I just said, most of us have been there 20 years, we really need some young blood. And if you guys can give us any ideas or bring some young blood in there that's got a lot of passion, a lot of fire, to help us raise money again and replenish the coffers so we can do Riverside Drive, that would be great. So there's a kind of a twofold approach to that. But what I'm saying is we're gonna need help going forward to finish this off the way we really need to. And once again, that piece on Riverside Drive to Weber Park could be absolutely spectacular.
Yeah.
So that's the big issue, and I just wanted to make you aware of that, and thank you everybody, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next item on the agenda is a discussion to approve a temporary use permit, special event liquor license, the open carry of alcoholic beverages, various street closures, and an ordinance amending the fiscal year 18-19 tourism fund budget in the amount not to exceed $10,000 for the Shamrocks The Fox event to be held on Saturday, March 16th and Sunday, March 17th, 2019. Phil Hobson, can you please present this item?
Thank you. So it's probably a little bit easier presenting this year than last year. I think you as the voters certainly took a chance last year in a festival that was new and outside the box for us, certainly outside the box for us. And I hope that most of us would agree, and I think our downtown business would agree, that it was a smashing success in terms of all of their business, as well as the visitors that came and attended any single part of that, whether that be the 5K or just the dyeing of the river. The parade was certainly one of the better parades that I've been involved with. Just a lot of fun. But we also learned a lot in that first year in how we needed to change some things and how we needed to make some amendments of how this event actually was run, I should say. So within that agenda item summary, there are some changes that we're looking to make. One of the biggest ones was amending the time of the event, or the open carry of the alcohol, with the event actually opening up at 11 at the point. We had a lot of people that came right from the dime of the river that were lined up down there, and there were just, quite honestly, I wasn't expecting people to be there that soon, and there was a lot of people that were there, and they were ready to have a good time. So that was the one big change, was changing that to 11 a.m. instead of last year, I think it was 2 p.m. Another change was the following day was extending the hours of the event, and making that from, I think we ended at 6 p.m. last year, or 5:45 is when we ended serving. This year, one of the ideas was to just add a little flair onto the end of the event, and that was a small fireworks show. And so extending those hours to kind of align with when the sun actually sets, which is about 7 o'clock. So ending ticket sales at 6:30, alcohol sales or alcohol consumption at 6:45, and then get people outside that tent, shoot off a small fireworks show right in the center of our downtown to conclude the event and give, again, a little family feel to it on that particular day. The one, and that was the other change I included the budget last year so you could see where every dollar was spent. The one addition this year was the fireworks, and so we haven't worked all the way through the length of that fireworks show yet, but I'm assuming, I'm planning for probably just about a 15-minute show, something along that lines, which generally runs in that $1,000 a minute. So that's where you see the $10,000 addition from the tourism fund. We didn't need that at all last year. We came out $8,000 ahead after every bill was paid. $8,000 was put back into the hotel motel fund. So the $10,000 is simply a worst case scenario at this point. Is if we just broke even and we added one new element, that accounts for that new element. Other than that, we also had to change the parade route. That was another big change. We brought that parade south on Riverside Drive all the way to the terminus and tried to turn them onto Venice Avenue. And while it was nice to dump people right into the event grounds, from a police point of view, it was not the most fun thing to try to run or accomplish. especially when we had some parade floats that were taller and there were some shorter power lines in that area. So they needed to break down when they got to that point, and then it caused a delay. The other change to the parade is because of the volume of people that we had, we weren't anticipating that. And so we didn't close the streets down or pull the cars off, I should say the parked cars, we didn't pull off the street. This year that will be a must, is pulling those cars off of Green Street. It does limit us some parking along there. So remove the cars on Green Street. When the parade goes from Green to Pearl to Riverside Drive, we'll actually turn north on Riverside Drive and circle it back to Vets Park. So it'll go down to Broad Street, and then the parade floats can empty into Vets Park if there's any walkers or people that are getting off those floats, they can safely get off those floats. There's washrooms at Vets Park, and then they can funnel back into either Green Street or Riverside Drive at that point. We felt that was, we talked about it a lot and kind of went around and around with some different scenarios, and really felt that that was our best scenario for the parade route change, just for the safest action for the event. So those were the majority of the changes that we had. You know, again, some of the details this gives us an opportunity to also fund seek out sponsorships. Last year we had a late approval, so I anticipate our sponsorship rate, both with the success of the event and the time that we've hopefully approved this event ahead of time, that we'll have some additional sponsorship dollars. I know a lot of people were very interested and just eager to be involved this year. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have, but I'm excited to be bringing this before you once again this year.
Thanks, Bill. Alderwoman Condon?
Couple of things. Last year, I know one of the biggest concerns that, I mean, it was all positives, but not enough food trucks.
That was another thing that we played safe. We just didn't anticipate the crowd being that big, and so
I understand.
the first thing we'll do is we'll see if there's any local restaurants that want to participate. The only one we had last year was Little Chef, and that was because it worked well for her schedule. She only participated on Saturday. So we'll see if there's any local businesses that want to participate first from a restaurant point of view. My guess is that there won't be a lot because of the volume that they have coming through their doors. They'll want to man their restaurants first, but I would like to reach out to a couple and give them that option. Otherwise, additional food trucks will definitely be a must this year.
Yeah, especially with the drinking, having some food there would be welcome. I just wanted to clarify, let's see, on page 179 of the packet, it does say alcohol sales to 6:45. And I heard you just mention that it would cut off at 6:30, and that was something I was going to highly recommend, because we want people to be done by 6:45 so that we can see the fireworks. Before I realized that there was the fireworks, as I was reading it, I thought, wow, that's really too late to have that going. But I understand you want to keep people there to see the fireworks, and that might be necessary, but I think the sales at least should be cut off by 6:30.
Yeah, that might have just been a mistake on my part. I try to be consistent with what our event policy typically is, like when we want people to finish ticket sales and then finish drinking, so that we're getting them out, hopefully out of that area about 7:15.
You're referencing Sunday.
I'm talking about Sunday, yes.
On Sunday.
So the intent is to end the sales at 6:30.
At 6:30, yeah, I'm sorry.
Perfect, great, thank you. Yes, thanks, Jim.
Alderman Schaefer?
The one thing that I thought of when you brought up the food trucks, most of the food trucks you have to guarantee a minimum to, right? And you have to get.
Oh, what this year?
Typically you do.
That's why you were conservative last year, I believe.
Yeah, you do, otherwise you're on the hook for it. The downside, sometimes you can charge people to be there. Food trucks aren't gonna come unless they're guaranteed that minimum, and they're not gonna pay to come. So it becomes that amenity, but it's a source of revenue that maybe we give up. But I think that we shouldn't have any trouble getting multiple food trucks. But last year it was just two on the busy day and one. We actually had one. We had two on the Sunday, which was a much quieter day, and one of those pulled out early because the volume just wasn't there on Sunday.
But that leads into the next question. When you have an event that's so successful, can that reverse where they pay you to get in?
We'll try that approach.
Okay, I'm just, I know
no,
they do it that way as well.
We definitely look at it as a revenue source, you know, we don't wanna overcharge, but.
Right.
But again, you could see the budget that we presented last year, and it was an event to put on.
Yeah, it's
There
like
was-
when you
there was a
work
lot
the
going
trade
on,
show, you
so-
wanna be at that location,
Yeah.
and they make, you have to pay to get your little spot.
Yeah.
So, that's, the other thing too is I know, I bring this up a lot, but for maybe in future times too, we gotta remember our friends over on Main Street. They get to be the stepchild a lot and get left out of a lot of things, so I don't know if there's future looking at something to even, you know, do the parade over there again. I know we didn't do it last year for this either, but, just a thought for something.
Yeah, this is, it is something we considered this year, was moving that just to their Fiesta Days parade route. For us, it's one of those slow grow. All right, we're gonna, this year, instead of organizing the parade in East Campus parking lot, we're hoping to utilize all of that as parking, move the parade down to Kane Avenue where there's plenty of room for them to organize. It doesn't really affect anybody. And then maybe next year, if we can get some buy-in from Main Street, maybe that becomes the logical then expansion, like just baby steps, one step at a time. And maybe that's what happens next year as we look to continue to grow this event or shape this event, I should say.
I just figured you were using Green Street longer, you know, green for St. Patrick's Day.
Well, of course.
Can't wait to see the mayor's outfit.
Oh, that's gonna be good now.
No, yeah, challenge on.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I'm going on mine tonight. Any other discussion, questions on this?
I'm glad to see the parade route being cleared. I know, last year it got pretty tight through there, and with all the kids and stuff, it was a little crazy walking through there.
It was made for a great picture.
Yeah,
Look up Main Street.
Still have that on my background.
Any other questions, comments? I'm gonna open up to public input. Anyone would like to make a public comment at this time on this item?
Well, this is a good one.
All right, at this time, looking for a motion to approve item 7I as presented. Alderman Schaefer?
Make that motion as presented.
Second? Alderwoman Thomas?
Yes, second.
Discussion on this item? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Schaefer?
Yes.
Alderwoman Condon?
Yes.
Alderman Devine?
Yes.
Alderman Mahavik?
Yes.
Alderman Curry?
Yes.
Alderman Glab?
Yes.
Alderman Santi?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Next item on the agenda is motion to pass a resolution approving executive session minutes, meeting minutes as presented, authorize the release of executive session meeting minutes as presented, the destruction of an executive session recordings that have existed for more than 18 months and for which the minutes of that meeting have been approved.
This was, we discussed last time, and we just needed to clean up that paragraph in it, so we knew what we were doing with everything, so that's why it's back before you.
So I move the motion on this item. Alderman Curry?
I'll make that motion.
Second by Alderman Santi.
I will second it.
Discussion on this? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Curry?
Yes.
Alderman Santi?
Yes.
Alderman Glab?
Yes.
Alderman Schaefer?
Yes.
Alderman Mahavik?
Yes.
Alderman Devine?
Yes.
Alderwoman Condon?
Yes.
Thank you, Council. Next item on the agenda is staff reports. Is there any staff reports this evening?
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
And Mayor and City Council comments. I have a few besides Merry Christmas. But I am going to be gone from December 30th through January 12th for vacation with my family. I needed one, so I'm actually going to be leaving my phone at home. So at this time, in my absence, I'd ask that Jeff Schaefer be deputy mayor while I'm gone. Just don't screw stuff up. But I would ask that he would take that on, and if there's any issues or any things that need to be handled while I'm gone, that Jeff Schaefer handles all that with the staff. So, all right, so other than that, Merry Christmas to everyone, and Happy New Year, and any city council comments? Alderman Schaefer.
We had a Parks Committee meeting today, so those minutes will be done and out soon.
Any other comments?
Wish everybody a Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Same.
Looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion. Executive session.
Alderman Shanty?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
The second? Alderman McHenry?
Yes.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Santi?
Yes.
Alderwoman Condon?
Yes.
Alderman Devine?
Yes.
Alderman Meyer?
Yes.
Alderman Curry?
Yes. She won in Arizona.
Alderman Schaper?
Yes.
Alderman Galt?
Yes.
Thank you, council.